Sorry, this is the first time I've done some kind of talk, so it's probably going to be a bit shaky and weird, but let's see how that goes. Hello, welcome. So I don't know where I'm supposed to be clicking for this test. No? Cool. I don't want to ruin the joke in case it doesn't work, but anyway. So hi everyone. I just wanted to say thanks for inviting me to come up because this is pretty fucking cool. And I'm Shayleen and I'm a 3D artist that lives in London. Very recently became a freelancer, so I have some things to share about it, more just like revelations on just kind of how weird and hard it is to get broken into this thing. So I'm here to talk about my experiences about breaking into freelance, which is still very new to me, but hopefully I'll be able to give some kind of advice on how to present yourselves online, because that's pretty much everything that it is. And I was told to bring jokes and memes, but all I really have is if this will skip, is this, which pretty much sums up what it's like to be a freelance artist anyway. So that's all I got, kids, I'm sorry. So for real though, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background about myself and where I came from in starting to become a professional artist, because none of that is smooth and it kind of goes up and down. And I found that if professionals shared a little bit more about their stories and the difficulties it took to become, I guess, a professional in the industry, and they're a bit more open about it, graduates wouldn't feel quite as lost when they tried to break in. So I started as a live painter, as you can kind of see. That was pretty much like, come to an event, we've got a wall, paint it for money. An illustrator and a pet shop employee selling rabbits and hamsters. And I decided very last minute in college, not being a gamer at all, that I suddenly wanted to make interactive art, not knowing what that was, what that meant, or what I had to do. And I just went to Leicester University to study game art and kind of hoped that it would be easy. And I was shit. For about 3 years, I sucked at 3D. I was an okay 2D artist. I wasn't very motivated. Spent my whole time worrying about work while not actually doing it. And that meant that I never really achieved anything great or special for the entire time that I was there. Which I didn't really know if I wanted to be a 2D artist, a concept artist, illustrator, 3D character artist, waitress, to run away into the forest and never come back. And this pretty much reflected on my work the whole time. That far picture over there is apparently me. I'm not sure if you can. It's terrible. You can tell me it's terrible. I'd been doing 3D for about almost 2 years by that point, which you can't tell. And it's you can tell me it's terrible. It's fine. I hate looking at it so much. And I'm telling you this because people seem to think that if you have skill, that means that you're pretty much good at the beginning of your career. And it's not true at all. We all suck at first, and you're going to suck for a long time, and it takes people a different amount of time to get used to that. And I didn't find my passion for 3D until at least the last few months of my final year, where I made these really silly hand-painted characters. And finally 3D was kind of clicking with me after 3 years of struggling. And then I graduated, and I got an okay grade. I wasn't anything special. I wasn't like this prodigy, I guess, of a student. And then suddenly I was let out into the big bad world, where I struggled to find a job for about a year. So here are the projects that I've worked on in the past 3 years since I've jumped into the void that is our industry, and most of them over the past 6 months or so since I became a freelancer. So I started off at 22 Cans for the 2.5 years that I was there. I worked on the trail for PC and for mobile. And then when I left and became a freelancer, suddenly all these different projects started coming into my career. Bottom ones I obviously can't talk about. I don't know how much about it I can talk about, but probably like nothing, so I was safe. A lot of them are just indie games or stuff that's not come out yet. And I've just started working with Variable State, who made Virginia, so not quite have anything to show for that yet either. But I'm somebody who's driven by being able to work on a range of projects. So being a freelancer basically is the best thing for me, because I get to work on so many different things. Getting that first job, I think it's kind of something that everybody wants to know, but unfortunately there's no time limit. There's no one thing you can do to get that job, and I'm really sorry, but it's different for everyone. I worked at Wetherspoons for about a year, applying to every job under the sun. I got interviews, never heard back, did art tests, never heard back. Got told I had a job once and then they cancelled it a few days later. Horrible stuff, but it's all really common, and you kind of need to understand that it's rough trying to squeeze in through the door. But it's not impossible, and you will find a job in the end, no doubt, but it will just take a different amount of time for everybody. And I guess I'm saying this because all my friends got jobs when they immediately left, and I found that really disheartening for me, because it kind of makes you feel like you lose a lot of your self-worth and not wanting. I decided I didn't want to make games anymore. It's been about a year. Nobody would hire me, so I decided that I wanted to be a bar manager. And then out of the blue, I randomly got an email from 22 Cans asking if I wanted to come and meet them, and somehow I got a job. No idea how. And it's surprising how things can just suddenly come about when you least expect them. So I guess don't give up, you'll find your job eventually. And one last thing would have to be, just as like general advice for everybody if you don't want to be a freelancer, is interviews, which I keep forgetting I have 2 screens. So the key to interviews is just to stay calm, do your research on pretty much everybody that you talk to. Take your time answering questions, bring just as many questions as they're going to ask you to them. And it's not a race. You'll kind of come off as a stronger candidate if you're not trying to answer questions like on the fly. And interviews also apply to freelance. The main differences between a freelance interview and a studio interview is that a freelance interview is all about you trying to figure out the scope of what they want and getting to know your clients. A studio interview is more the other way around. They're trying to get to know you and make sure you're not crazy and make sure that you'll gel well with the team. Freelance interviews, clients already know what you're able to do. They want you. They're trying to convince you to join the team. And I guess to kick off the whole big freelance talk is the main thing to say, freelancing is not for everyone. It's a really lonely job to do. Some people flourish and have a great time working from home, managing their own time and hopping from job to job. Others need the social aspect of their job, seeing people every day and working in a team. You have to be really honest with yourself to say, can I actually be alone for the 8-9 hours, sometimes overtime, so 12-hour days? Can you really do that alone, or do you need to be able to see people throughout the day? Another big smack would have to be, there's also the stress factor of finding clients, which I'll talk about how you can do that later. Will I have a job this month? Will people find work? Will people find my work? Or will I have any work for the next 6 months? These are all things you need to think about and plan for. And luckily, after my redundancy, I had savings that meant that I could live off for about 6 months without finding any work. And I wouldn't suggest jumping into freelance without that money safety blanket. Because out of the 6 to 7 people that may contact me, I will only book one of them. So just know that all these emails you're getting doesn't mean that you've got a job and you've got somebody wanting to work with you. You'll probably only book about one. You also have to do your own taxes. You have to get an accountant. You have to keep record of business expenses so you can claim them back. You have to buy software licenses. You have to send emails, so many emails. And you basically have to run like a tiny business. And it sounds scary and complicated and confusing at first, but it's a little bit easier than it sounds. So when you're a freelancer, self-motivation is pretty much key to your survival and being a creative in general. So here are a few ways that I kind of keep it going. The biggest thing I'd have to push is that it's okay to take a break. I find that the best way to stay motivated when art block calls is just to go with your gut. If you need to take a break, take one. If you like this project that you're working on, but you're not sure if it's worth your time yet, but you kind of really want to complete it, do it anyways, but maybe talk to your clients or reevaluate your scope if it's a personal project. For example, the pink head girl that I worked on was going to be a full character, and I almost completely trashed it because I couldn't be bothered to work on it anymore. So I reevaluated my scope and I made it a bust, which meant that I could complete it, at least within some kind of time frame. When If you're blanking while working on a project, that's basically like you're just spinning it around for like 20 hours and you're not actually really doing anything, but you're convincing yourself you're kind of doing something. Maybe work on to another project and that will give you a mental break, and then you can come back to that one later. Creating small schedules, small dedicated time slots to work. Streaming helped me with this because I set small slots of time that I would say, I'm going to work on a personal project, and that was regular every week, meaning that I could work on personal things and learn and grow without feeling like I was really working. So here's just a few things that I think helps with self-motivation. Setting achievable goals is really important. I know that the excitement of working on something new will probably get ahead of you and you'll think, I'm going to do this huge, big, grand thing, but often that sets up for disappointment. So you need to set small, achievable goals, but often. And then every time you tick that one thing off, you can then move to the next, and that keeps your motivation going. Push yourself to learn something new, but not something that you can't achieve. So say that you're like a stylized artist or something like that, and then you go, I want to do hyperreal, but you've never done it before. That's when you would then go back to setting small, achievable goals rather than saying, I want to do this huge, big project suddenly. Because then it's not disheartening, and then you're learning something new anyway. Finish things, and that doesn't just mean having a big final product. That also means if you've set out to learn something, make sure that you've learned it before you move on. And that just kind of, once again, it's just like an inner accomplished thing. You feel really motivated because you've learned something or you've finished something, and then you can move on to something new. Keep old screenshots of your work, so then maybe in a year's time or 6 months' time, you can look back on the old stuff you were doing and you actually have something to look at and say, oh, so I actually did get better. Because if you keep deleting all of those screenshots that make you feel full of shame, because I had to show that image in the top corner and I hate it, but at least I have a reference point to say, 2 years ago, this is what I was achieving, and now I can do this. And then find your competition. So that's just against peers, anyone online. If there's somebody that you admire, don't see it as oh shit, they're really good, I'm never going to be able to get there. Try to see it, break down what they've done, and then try to chase them. Try to find a way to do what they're doing in a positive way rather than, oh, I'm never going to get there, they're too good, I don't understand it. So that's kind of how I try to run my creative life, I guess, if that's helpful to anyone. And then how to build a portfolio. So when being a freelancer, this is essentially everything that you are. This is how people are going to find you. This is how people are going to see you. And this is how people are going to make their mind up on if they want you or not. And everyone talks about portfolios, so I don't really want to mull on it too much. But hopefully I take a little bit of a different approach to it. And what I've learned personally is that there's no right or wrong portfolio, and people like to tell you there is, but I don't think there personally is, as every job and every studio wants to see different things. Have you ever sent work to a few people and gotten completely conflicting feedback on what should be on your portfolio, what you should take out, what you need to add? And it's just dependent on what that person is particularly looking for. So as a freelancer, present yourself the way that you want to be seen. If you want to work for a particular studio or in a particular role, tailor your focus to what they want. But if you're a freelance artist, it's all about exploring a range of things, but within your discipline. So I want to be a character artist, and mostly what you're going to see is characters and props, but it will be within a range of styles, but it's still the things that I enjoy doing. It's nothing that I don't want to be hired for, so I'm not going to stick it on there. And the whole reason for you creating your work isn't just for your portfolio. You're going to be updating this and tweaking this for pretty much the rest of your career or life. So don't try to use it as your entire drive for creating projects. Create the projects that you like and that you want to be hired for, not something that you think should be in there just because somebody told you. A few weeks ago, I had somebody ask me that they wanted to be a prop artist and someone told them to put characters' environments in their portfolio, which, yes, you would get a job much faster, but you wouldn't be a prop artist anymore. You'd probably be a general artist for a small studio or an environment artist. I've been told so many times to make a hyperreal soldier or to put a sci-fi robot in my portfolio, And I could do these things, and I could do them well if I applied myself, but if I wanted to be hired to make a sci-fi robot, it would be in there. And I don't really want to hate myself by making super high realistic sci-fi robots. So I'll make the things that I enjoy and possibly wait a little bit longer for work to come in, but at least it'll be the things that I would love to work on. Guess this part's more for artists. I'm sorry if you're not one. But there's like certain ways to display your work that clients want to see and studios want to see. So my main formula would be a beauty shot, which is something like this. It would be posed. Don't do them not posed. If you have a character, it has to be posed. And this can be done in ZBrush, Maya, anything really. Pose it up. They want to see beauty shots, front and back. Try not to oversaturate your images by doing front and back as separate images. Put them in the same one. They want to see wireframes, multiple poses if it's a character, some kind of GIF or turntable, because people fucking love GIFs, and technical shots. So that's breakdowns of your textures or any shaders that you may have built yourself. Try to show as much as you can about your skill set without oversharing and boring anybody. So building an online presence, this is one that I get asked a lot, but it's really hard for me to nail down into one thing that you can do. And it's a slow burner, it's going to take a long time, and you kind of have to stick with it. And consistency is key when it comes to building this presence, because you have to keep posting regularly. If you're not posting regularly, people forget, there's no clicks, there's no shares, and you'll burn out pretty fast. So to start off, how to make an online presence is to make friendships, not connections, because I hate the word connections. People know when you want something from them and often won't remember you as a person who makes cool stuff and was an awesome person, but as that guy who was kind of looking for something, and no one really wants to feel that way. Friendships, especially like online and in your community, are rememberable, and people build more of a depth. Your relationship with them has more depth. And the first freelance gig that I ever got was a recommendation from a really good friend of mine, and that's because we're friends and because we know each other well. I'm more likely to recommend my friends than just some person who gave me their business card. And if you don't know who Blair Armitage is, you should look her up, because she's fucking amazing. So I'll remember a person for being a great person in their work, not their business card. And here's a few places to be if you're a developer. Twitter's probably the big one. If you're not on Twitter, get a Twitter account. All the game devs are on there, all the indie devs, all the artists. It's becoming a huge hub, so make sure that you're on there. If you're an artist and you don't have an ArtStation page, get one. Why don't you have one yet? Polycount is good. It's got animation, 3D, 2D. I think it's got some dev stuff in there too, like tools and all that stuff. But the key to Polycount is you have to be a regular poster. If you don't post regularly, often your post will get lost. So if you want to get feedback or get to know people, you have to be quite regular with that. And a Riot competition just opened up, which is a really good way to meet people and get feedback. So if you can, try to join some kind of competition that's going on as well. Discord, which is really new, but somehow it's like really big for developers now. Polycount has one. There's a bunch of like hand-painted guilds. There's a bunch of dev guilds. You guys have one. So get on Discord. They're crazy active. Get to know some people in your community. And that helps you build an online presence because people start recognizing you because you're posting regularly and you're talking to people. And then maybe Facebook. But to be honest, I just use it as an art dump. I don't really use Facebook for clients, but I know a lot of 2D artists who get all of their work from Facebook. So maybe try Facebook out if you can. Some general social media tips if you want to get people looking at your work. Like I said, GIFs. People love them so much. The biggest traction I've gotten is literally just a GIF of me dragging my model and turning it a bit. And people love it. So if you can, GIF it, get it out there. People want to see work moving if they can. And that's going to get a lot of people seeing your stuff and then getting conversations with people about it. post regularly, but not often enough where it becomes spam, because then people will click off, they're not interested anymore, you're posting it too often, you're pissing them off. Get involved with conversations. If somebody else has posted something that you like, ask a question, tell them it's cool, get involved with the community, and share other people's work, because we're all about helping each other, try to build a community, get to know everyone. And surprisingly, there's key times in the week to post big pieces, and it seems kind of nerdy to say, but between Monday to Wednesday, about 6 p.m. is the best time to post work, because that's when America is awake, and that's people are off the weekend, they're now on their phones, they're bored with work, they're going to be checking social media more often, and that's kind of when I like to post bigger stuff if I want it to be spread a lot further. And then use key hashtags, but not too many, where it kind of looks like a spam wall, because that annoys people as well. And that's just general tips, which everybody kind of knows, but I thought I'd stick on there anyway. And these have helped me, I think, with making sure, making sure that people are seeing my stuff and it's kind of getting spread around. I guess now it's time to mention some of the boring stuff no one talks about with freelance. Everybody kind of should know it, and it's stuff that nobody wants to talk about because mostly it's money. No one wants to talk about how much money they're earning because they want to keep it a secret for some reason. And there's just a few things that I've learned in the short time that I've been self-employed, but mostly from my accountant. So here's an important one. If you want to know how to calculate your rates, I will leave it up if you want to write it down or get a picture. This is one that gets asked all the time, and I kind of had to figure out myself. And once again, because people don't want to talk about money, they don't really share around how to do this. So calculating your rates is a lot simpler than it sounds. It's pretty much count up all of your monthly expenses, everything that you spend. So that's your phone bill, rent, food, anything like software subscriptions, Spotify. Count all of that up. Take 30% of what that equals and add that on top, and that's basically your monthly budget of what you need. Is that enough for me to live on? Yes or no? If it's no, add a little bit more onto that. Then take all of that, times it by 12, and then divide by 260. And 260 is pretty much the average work days in a year for the UK. And then add tax on top of that, which is normally about, I kind of add extra, so I normally put about 25, 28%, because your tax bracket depends on how much you're earning. And then that's my daily rate, which can sometimes seem like a crazy amount of money, but at the end of the year, you have to pay a huge amount in tax. So trying to make sure that you're putting some kind of percentage of it aside. But the reason it's so much is because you're now having to pay for software, which Autodesk is crazy expensive. And you have to compensate for that studios don't, which your studio kind of wage doesn't really reflect. So I guess make sure that you're really planning out how much that you need, and don't let people try to get way less than you need to live from you, because when you're a student, they will. And on the taxes talk, which is super fucking boring, we're from a country that does our taxes for us, which is a blessing but also a curse, because we're never taught what it takes to be self-employed and how we can take advantage of that. And even though nowadays so many people are creating their own companies and studios and businesses, once again, nobody wants to talk about it. So I met up with my accountant, and she told me all this stuff I can claim, and it's beautiful. So pretty much anything you buy for work, sketchbooks, pens, paper, Post-it notes, I bought blue tack, all that stuff goes into your expenses. Internet, gas, electric, water, council tax, your rent, because you're working from home. This is now your office. You can get tax off that too. You went to an art event and you did some networking, claim it. You did an online course because you had to learn something, claim it. Travel costs, I had to go meet a client for lunch, claim that too. Software, Spotify is claimable. I had no idea about that one. Hardware, so your PC actually, which I had no idea about until a couple weeks ago. If you buy a brand new PC setup, that goes under company expenses, and the entire price of that PC gets taken off the tax that you have to pay, which I had no idea about. So if you do it, try to buy an entire PC and get your tax taken off, which is pretty nice. So I would always suggest, it sounds expensive and it sounds kind of crazy, but I'd always suggest getting an accountant the first time that you have to do this. And that's because they'll teach you all the little tricks that you need. They'll help you with the confusing language. Like one I messed up on was, they said, are you earning any international income? I was like, well, some of my clients are in the US, so yes. That's not what they mean. They mean, do you have a bank or an account in another country? And it doesn't sound that way. So that meant I would have had to pay way more tax than I needed to if I'd done it myself. And to be honest, about 2.5 hours with my accountant cost about £360, but she saved me a lot more in my taxes in the long run, so it's a price I'm willing to pay. And then after that, you meet them for like half an hour once a year, and then they go through your tax and go, yep, you got it right, or we can get money off this thing, or we can do this thing. So it ends up being cheaper in the long run. And that's hopefully the boring part over. The biggest thing I learned about working with clients, it's a difficult balance. You're going to have some difficult ones and you're going to have some really good ones, and you kind of have to get used to, I guess, working with people regardless of that. And the biggest thing I've learned is to never, ever drop an estimate straight away, because they will want you to. Clients will want to know the price straight away from the first email of what something will cost to make, but don't be tempted to drop a number without all the info that you need. Otherwise, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass, pretty much. Because then you'll get all the information, and then you change your price, and they'll be like, but you said it would cost this much. So that's the last fight you really want to be in. Ask as many questions as you need to understand the workload. Get concepts. Do they need concepts? Do they even have any? Spec everything out first and then hit them with an estimate. Don't give it any sooner, and try to make sure you're fully confident in the workload that you need to do. And these are basically the main questions that I like to ask. I'm going to read them through because it's quite small. But I like to ask a new client pretty much this basic template of questions so I can get an idea of the scope and the hours that I'll need to invest to get the job done. And these are normally asked very early on, as the emails that you'll get straight away are really, really vague. It will be like, I need a stylized character in 2 weeks. It looks kind of like TF2, no concept, nothing else. You don't know what's going on. How much is that gonna cost? Okay, but what is it for? Like, do you have a concept of this? Is what's going on with the character? Do you have any environments? Do I know what kind of actual style that you're looking for? What's your platform spec? This changes everything. If it's for mobile, it's going to be completely different to PC or console. All of them have their own restrictions. So the basic questions are, do you have any concepts that I could take a look at if they haven't sent me any already? Sometimes, what's the character's story? Because they'll send you a concept and you don't understand who the character is, you don't know their decisions, and you need to understand why it's designed the way that it is. Do you have any environments or concepts or screenshots of the world that the character is living in at all, so then I can make the character match what they already have? What's your platform spec? Is it PC, console, phone? Is the project under NDA? Because you kind of want to know that straight away. They want to keep that a secret sometimes, because I don't always like to work on NDA projects, because my current freelance gig could get me my next. So if I'm only working on NDA, it means I can't show any work for about 2 years, and then I can't get new work in. What engine are you building it in? Unity, Unreal, something else? They all have their own restrictions. Do you want this to be the PBR workflow, diffuse unlit? Is there a custom workflow that I need to learn? Do you have custom tools I need to learn? This all changes your time estimates. Do you have a deadline for when you need these characters for? That's really important. Make sure they give you their deadline. If it's really flexible, try to get an idea of what their deadline might be. And what's your current budget, which gives you an idea of what they're willing to spend to get the work that they need. Because sometimes they don't have the budget to complete the full character, so you can do parts of it and then they'll complete it on their own. So you kind of need to know what they're willing to spend. And the biggest one is, don't be a dick, because especially when you're a freelancer, it's all about you and your personality and the work that you can create. no one wants to work with an asshole. So word spreads fast, especially in our industry, and be the person that you want to work with. And even though sometimes something that they might do might make you upset or angry or you don't agree, the good thing about working from home is that you can send a really polite email back and keep that stuff inside and not tell them anything. Because ultimately, working with clients, your job is to make them happy, which sometimes doesn't completely line up with what you creatively think that you should be doing, but it's all about making your client happy. And you need to make sure that you're working together to make their vision come true and to make sure that they're happy and you're giving them what they need, but also doing it in a way that I'm trying to think of the word, in a way that will look good on you and also them, but not trying to force them to change their mind, because they know what they want and you're there to make sure that they get what they want. Oh God, I don't know why it did that. Oh man, I blasted through that. So when I said find your competition, I thought I would throw this up. I'm going to leave this up at the end of the talk if anybody wants a picture. I've also got my slides available so you can have a look at it. But I said find your competition, and this is pretty much my competition right here. These are all the people that I find inspiring to keep creating and to keep chasing, and I will chase every single one of them until the day that I die, and I'll try to be as good as them one day. And yeah, I talked really fast, thank you. If you have any questions, what time is it? So yeah, you can pretty much get my slides on that link. I'll post them up if you want to read through it, because I've got stuff like how to calculate your rates and all this stuff, so you can actually have a look at that again later if you want to. But yeah, any questions at all?
I'll start off. I've got two from one of our distance guys.
Yeah.
He wants to know, there's the question to start. In your experience, what is it portfolio-wise that potential employers and clients look for? He kind of covered it in presentation.
Yeah, different stuff. It depends on the studio and stuff as well. If there's a particular studio you want to work for, you can just look at their own portfolio and you know what they want. Try to ask somebody who's working there to find out what they want. They'll always have a job spec. When I first decided I wanted to do character art, I printed off what a bunch of different companies were looking for in a character role and made sure I was hitting all those points and I was exploring those things. But when it comes to freelance, it's more, I kind of know what I need to show to be a character artist, but I now need to hit, I guess, loads of different styles and loads of different companies and loads of different indie companies and individuals, because I don't want to stop one person from coming to me and being like, she doesn't do this thing, so we're not going to hire her. But within a range of things that I enjoy too, because like I said, I don't want to be doing Crisis or something. It's nothing that I'm particularly super interested in. So I don't put that stuff in my portfolio. So especially as a freelance artist, you put in what you want to make if you want to have a really happy career. But if you want to just keep churning stuff out, put everything in there.
And the second question is more character specific. What, in your opinion, is the best pipeline for creating realistic hair cards?
Ooh. Okay, so this was hell. I have probably just ZBrush is probably the fastest way. There's an IMM hair card brush, and you can just draw out hair cards super easy. And I'll build a chunk, and then I'll just go into Maya and copy and paste a huge chunk and just pop them around. And then go back into Maya and make splines and just extrude cards along splines to do more custom stuff. All the strands of hair are just tubes. Well, no, they're cubes, and then just extruded along a spline to make it cheaper. So yeah, there's a few different ways, but ZBrush I think is the fastest way, probably, and the less painful way to do that. Hello. Do it all the time. Not on your portfolio though. That's pretty much what Twitter's for. People they eat that stuff up. They love it. And also it creates conversation with the community, because when people post work in progress stuff, you can be like, how did you do that? Where did this come from? What's this idea for? And that's pretty cool. And, you know, you get to post all these things up and people ask you questions and you get involved. People love work in progress shots. So yeah, everywhere. Get a polycount thread. If you have like a polycount sketchbook, you can just fill that full of stuff and people will get involved. And it, like I said, it's a slow burner. People will slowly start trickling in. But no, people normally don't really care about the final product. They want to know how you got there, especially people in our own community. So, yeah. Yes.
What made you want to work freelance rather than working?
I was made redundant. No, I wanted to do. I was started doing freelance at the beginning of the year, and from the list of games that I've been working on, I'm driven by doing lots of different things. I don't like to work on the same thing for like 3-4 years. And especially with characters, a studio doesn't particularly need a character artist for a long period of time. So working as a freelancer means I get to work on loads of different things and I get to churn stuff out and also meet different people because I'm not sitting with the same people the whole time. So, but I went full time because of redundancy, which happens a lot. It's not a reflection on your skill. But yeah.
You said that your skill set kind of has to increase if you have to go freelance. So what range of skills you should like have in your pocket or like going?
This is the hard part because I think it's going to be really difficult to be a freelancer if you don't have some kind of experience already. And that's only because it's less stressful for you. Because clients will come to you and they expect you to be able to do it. You don't have, I guess, like a group of people that you can go to and say, I don't know how to do this thing. Even like a workflow, right? Because you've worked in a studio before, like knowing like stuff like source control and how to get set up with that, managing your own tasks, knowing what the engine restrictions are. Because here you guys work in engine quite a lot, but on my course we were just artists, so we didn't do any of that. We literally just worked in 3ds Max and that was it. So some industry experience helps with that because you know what blockers you're going to hit. But in terms of skills, it would have to be more just about being able to manage my own time and knowing what technical restrictions I have depending on platform. Because some clients actually don't know. So you kind of have to fill in the gap, especially if they're like indie clients. Sometimes they don't really... I think there's one where they wanted like really realistic hair moving in the wind. It's not possible. So you have to know ways of being able to suggest other ways of, we can kind of do jiggle bones, or we can do like some kind of Apex thing, which is like a physics simulator or something like that. And having that experience working in a studio gives me the confidence to be able to suggest stuff like that. But in terms of skill, it's the same as with a studio. It's more just keep creating pieces and you'll get better as you go. But if you're bad, a client probably won't come to you. So, anything else?